Welcome, Assemblywoman Tennille McCoy, to our Kane University Government Affairs and Community Partnerships Women's History Month podcast interview. We are doing these interviews with legislators from across the state to just get a feel for how you got involved in politics, why you got involved in politics, so that you can give inspiring words to other women, other young ladies to get involved in politics. And with that, we're going to start with where you're from, what legislative district you represent, and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you to Kane University. Thank you to the amazing Dr. Repillette and Kelly Ledette as well. I always have to acknowledge those two, my favorite Cougars. And so I am Assemblywoman Tennille McCoy. I hail from the 14th District, born and raised in Hamilton Township. So excited to be with you on today.
Wonderful. All right. So, easy peasy question first. What inspired you to run for office, and what was the moment that solidified your decision to enter politics?
So I think my inspiration for running for office really stemmed from my deep root commitment to public service, to advocating for working families. You know, my parents, I always talk about Sam and Tony McCoy, the two halves that make a whole. But throughout their careers, my dad was a small business owner. My mom worked for the state of New Jersey, and she was a CWA representative. And so they both made sure that they provided those tools and resources to my siblings and I, made sure that we always gave back to our community. They also made sure that our household was one that was really cemented around trusting in God. But then, two, they made sure that we focused on having a good education. So that was a top priority in our household. And so, one of the things you'll see that's always been top of mind for myself is one, affordable housing. And so,
Yes.
I think that is the kind of the nuts and bolts of a thriving community, is to make sure that individuals and families have housing that they can actually go home, sit around the dinner table. You know, I remember as a child, my mom would go off to work. My dad was a small business owner, so he went in a little later to open up his business at 10 a.m. But my dad was able to drop us off to school. But before then, we were sitting around that breakfast table. We would have to go get the newspaper off the porch, and we would have to read the newspaper, and whatever words we did not know, those were our spelling words for the week. So education was always a top priority for us. As an HR executive, you'll see some of the things that, as far as my legislation, I'm really keen on making sure that our future leaders have the necessary tools and resources to be successful and to meet those expectations. So it's critically important for me to make sure, one, that individuals they're armed with the necessary, like I said, resources, but most importantly, that they're able to kind of tackle real world issues. So it's about meaningful change, about I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm a freshman legislator going into year two. So I think it's really important to be able to lend your expertise across the table and really putting policies at the forefront and really making sure that I am the voice of the people. So ensuring that government works for them and not the other way around.
Absolutely. So you mentioned policies, you mentioned legislation. That leads me to what policies or legislation are you currently working on that you believe will have the most significant impact on New Jersey residents?
So one of the things you heard me say earlier was being able to lend my level of expertise. So I've been a human resource executive for over 20 years. I'm also a realtor. So I'm a realtor with Fox and Roach in Robbinsville.
Okay.
One of the bills that's super important for me, we moved it out of Assembly, just came out the Senate. It is a mortgage bill that allows homeowners to be able to pay their mortgage on the 1st and the 15th. And so this in itself is allowing for individuals to pay biweekly, bi-monthly, and it really would allow for 30 to 40,000 in a interest, where people can allow for that interest to go back into their pockets. I mean, 30 to $40,000 of cost savings. Then on top of that, if you had a 30-year mortgage, it decreases a 30-year mortgage from 8 to 10 years. So I think that's a significant piece of legislation. The other thing I talked about as being an HR executive is creating talent pipelines. So creating talent pipelines is my bread and butter. So one of the bills that I just moved out of the assembly is our internship bill. So we want to be able to have paid interns, looking at partnering with our Department of Labor, hopefully utilizing some of our funding as well. Critically important to make sure that our future leaders have opportunities in public service, understanding those opportunities and the pathway forward. But we have to be able to make those opportunities available. And I think we also have to understand that some students are actually helping their parents put food on the table. So we want to be able to make paid internships an actual reality.
Absolutely, and I think that that would open the door for so many more people who are interested in public service, but the stopgap is, I really
Absolutely.
wanna do this, I really wanna be involved in this, but if it's not a paid opportunity, I can't give up the paid opportunity that maybe I'm not as interested in, but it's gonna give me a check, so I think that's awesome, and
Exactly.
as a homeowner, the mortgage bill sounds amazing.
It is. It
From
is.
a homeowner to
And
you, the legislator, thank you.
yes, and it's like you're building equity in your home so much faster so that you can do other things with that money. So you can go renovate the kitchen, you can go renovate the bathroom, or you can pay off your car. It's those types of things to be able to put that 30, 40,000 back into your pocket.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's a personal thank you. What advice would you give to a young woman who's interested in pursuing a career in public service?
So, look, I mean, I think you have to understand that there are going to be some challenges as far as a woman running for office. And obviously, I think any and everyone can overcome those particular stereotypes. They can overcome those particular biases as far as a woman running in that particular leadership role. And I think it's anything, whether you're going to be a vice president within an organization or an individual that is going to lead a nonprofit or run for elected office. And so I think it's one of those things that we want to be able to kind of manifest and move forward and making sure that we remain kind of steadfast in that mission, but just strong coalitions with supporters. And I think also just making sure that you have those particular resources. So understanding the fundraising aspect, understanding the ability to, I want to say, make sure that the individual has the opportunity to really know their base and understanding the message and the mission that
Mhm.
you want to move forward within your particular community.
Can you share some of your biggest challenges you faced as a woman running for office and how you've overcome?
Sure. I think we're always going to have challenges as a woman, a woman of color, but we can always overcome those particular stereotypes or biases. I think women leaders lead very differently. They lead with intentionality. And so there's a level of I feel like nurturing, I feel there's a level of excellence that's put in our leadership, and then I think there is a level of research and checks and balances. So sometimes we are truly underestimated. And one of the things that my dad always taught me was never to underestimate anyone. And so there is this expectation to prove qualifications repeatedly. And unfortunately, this is something as women that we are going to have to deal with and accept. And again, one of the things my dad always told me, hey, Tennille, you are always going to have to give 110%. Any room that you walk into, no matter all the degrees, the letters, whatever you have behind your name, the thing that they're going to see when you walk into the room is that you are a Black woman. So it does not matter if you graduated from the London School of Economics or NYU Business School. You still are going to have to lead in a very authoritative way, but also in a way where it does not make people feel so intimidated. And with that, like you have to be able to have a balance, but remain steadfast in the mission. And I say to people, they are going to knock you down. They are going to set up barriers, but it is so important. It's how you get yourself up. It is so important to understand what is inside of you? What is that passion? What is running through your veins? And so when you want to run for office, you want to implement a particular project, it's really about having those champions around you. So building a strong coalition of supporters, letting your work actually speak. It's for itself. So when I say you doing a project, rolling out an excellence, and also making sure that the priority is to make sure that you're mentoring and you're uplifting other women. So ensuring that we continue to kind of break down those barriers. One of the things I did, I started the New Jersey Black Women's Collective, and it's really about providing women with the necessary tools and resources to actually propel to the next level. And so we did a pitch event with like chambers of commerce, private sector entities to say, what are mid-level manager women missing? And then we put all those things into a curriculum, whether it's emotional intelligence, think like a CFO, making sure that women can, the critical thinking. But also, we know as you climb the corporate ladder, as you move higher in any position, in any organization, there's more stress that's on you. So you have to be able to also have that balance. But as a woman, I love
Yes,
being a woman. I love being a Black woman. It is just it's my identity. And when I walk into those rooms, I walk into that room with my head held high with the utmost confidence that I'm able to get the job done. And what I say to people, that you will not outwork me. And that is, I think there's always going to be challenges, but you have to be able to work through those challenges and not fear them.
absolutely.
Don't fear them at all.
Can you talk about a mentor or a role model who influenced your political journey and how that person or those people have helped shape your leadership style?
Look, I think being a woman actually gives you many unique lenses. And so, whether it's in the policymaking side, it's on working in private sector or public sector. And so, I think that perspective is what really drives me and allowing to kind of advocate for certain policies. But it's also those women that have come before me and those shoulders that I stand on. So, I think their lives and their experiences
Mhm.
really reinforce my commitment to crafting legislation and policies. And then it also helps me craft legislation for women. Right. And so making sure that, let's say, for instance, when we're looking at clinical trials, that we're increasing clinical trials for Black and Brown people, we're increasing clinical trials for women. And so making sure that there's that accessibility for us. But there are significant women that have been able to really been big influencers of mine, and trailblazing women who have broken barriers, who have paved the way for future generations. And I'm fortunate to have learned from them. So I think about the Hope Coopers, I think about the Micheline Davises, I think about the Marilyn Davis, I think about obviously our late Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, Janine LaRue, my own mother. So those individuals who, and I think about one of my really good girlfriends, Tehran Tice McKnight. And so these are amazing women that I really try to structure how I live, how I walk, how I move. Hope Cooper was head of HR
Mm,
Americas at UBS Swiss Financial. I mean,
mhm.
incredible for a Black woman to be there, brought me into that private organization. And I just watched how she was able to make those personal connections, navigate through the politics and public sector. Amazing, amazing individual. And so when I watch many women, how they thrive, my own First Lady, Pastor Shamika Daniels, who not only they're working women, but they're also wives. They have families, so they're moms.
Right.
Many of them have their own businesses, and being able to thrive and kind of have all those balls up in the air at the same time is what it's all about.
It's
So when
right.
someone said you can only do one thing or another, it's not true. You can have it all. And
And
that's
and
what
you
these
just
women
touched on
represent.
where I was going with my next question. Having it all and being a working woman, being a working mom, being involved in the legislature, all of that can be exhausting. Even you don't always find the time to give to yourself. So how do you balance the demands of public service with personal and family life, and what keeps you motivated to continue to do this work?
So, if you want to continue to serve, you have to serve yourself in a sense of you have to make sure that you are doing everything possible to keep yourself healthy. So, there's this balance in public sector with the public, with the public, with the personal life. It's always a challenge. You have to mark out like that one night, which is date night, right? You have to mark out that one day that's family day. You always want to be able to stay grounded. You have to understand, like, remember, this is why I'm doing this work. Where was I on day one when I decided to run? And how did I feel when I first was sworn in on January 8th? What was that feeling? What was that feeling when I won that particular night on, election day? So it's those things that I think, one, you want to stay humble in what you do, but I think you also want to have that level of motivation, that you want to have this commitment, a long-term commitment with your community and with the people who need you and who you're going to affect their lives daily, right? On the decisions that you make in Trenton. But you have to be healthy. So knowing that my efforts can create positive change, that keeps me going. Even on the most demanding days, I try to make sure if I say I'm going to do something, I complete it. So you want to definitely take out that self care. You want to make sure that you're reflecting. I just picked up one of my, somebody gave me this huge journal the other day. And I'm sorry, not the other day. I got one that was like a morning meditations journal, which is great, that I grabbed. But I would say almost 3 years ago, a person gave me a journal, and I mean, it's thick. It's hundreds of pages. And I happened to pick it up the other day, and I'm like, "Wow, I wrote through this whole journal." And so journaling, I think, is just such a refreshing way to kind of put your thoughts to paper. So I love to write. Like, I love to write. So it is one of those ways that you can actually put your thoughts to paper
Mhm.
and really reflect on your accomplishments, your goals. I would say the other thing, I love the morning meditation. So you do have to set some time up when you get up in the morning. Alexa, when she wakes me up, good morning, Tennille. And the other thing that
Mm,
she'll say is pray for your future. And so I think I started out by saying, like, my family values, putting God first, making sure that we are a praying family. And for me, going to church, getting into that first 30 minutes of just singing and praising and worshiping is just an amazing time for me. It really draws out the entire week, and it sets me up for a nice refreshing another 7 days. And so that is important. Most importantly for women, please make sure that
yes,
you're doing your yearly doctor's appointments, your mammos, your paps, all of those things are really important. I know we run around, but we got to do our blood tests. We have to make sure that we're getting out there, we're exercising, we're walking,
absolutely.
and we're eating healthy. Right? I know it's so difficult as we during this circuit of events, and the stuff that they're feeding us is not healthy. There's an enormous amount of alcohol that is
Mhm.
given, and it's just like you gotta say no. And so it's hard, but a lot of times people they'll joke with me and they're like, "Oh, you're drinking hot tea again?" But
Mhm.
that's like, hey, that's like my thing. And instead of, drinking having a martini,
Yep.
it's a way for me to
Wonderful.
keep up.
And lastly, what is some words of advice that you would give to a young lady who is looking to be in your shoes, looking to be in the legislature one day?
Do it. So take the risk. So my advice is simply just go for it. Never doubt yourself. Don't allow fear to hold you back. Find mentors, find
Mhm.
people that you actually want to be like, right? Find those mentors, sit down with them, figure out their pathway, but believe in yourself, believe in your potential. Build a strong network of supporters. Make sure you're out networking. Go to events. And it's so funny. So my MBA is from the London School of Economics and HSC of Paris. And so I have this group of alumni who are in like the luxury goods space. And so that is like, if anybody knows me, that's like my space, luxury goods. It's always an area I used to be like this stylist. So something that I've always loved to do. And so every now and again, I get to hang out with them. I get to, go to various events. Like yesterday, I missed out on, I was supposed to go with them to meet one of the
Nice.
VPs of L'Oreal for marketing in New York. And so it's doing kind of stepping out of your comfort zone and networking. And sometimes networking does not fit your schedule, but you're gonna have to go. And so if it probably wasn't so cold yesterday, I would have actually gone. But pushing yourself to get to those types of events. And we need more young women involved. We need fresh ideas. We need bold leadership to stand up. And so when I talk about bold leadership, I need every woman to hear me on this. I know there's a difference of being super timid and there's a super difference of somebody being very assertive, right? You need to either find yourself in the middle or you need to figure out how you're going to kind of land on the aggressive side. And so I say that to say, I'll give you a great example. And I was talking to one of my new employees yesterday, and she says, how do you kind of like, how do you tell someone no? Or how do you feel comfortable in various spaces? So think about this. Like, if you were getting your hair done and you didn't like it, how often would you actually tell the stylist that you don't like what they just did with your hair? Or would you just go home with
Right.
a hairstyle you didn't like and you actually paid for it? Most people would actually pay for the hairstyle and then go
I
home
didn't
and try
like
to fix
this.
it versus
Hmm.
just telling somebody, I don't like it. Yeah. And so I think that's the assertive person. So you have to get to that person and you have to figure out how to do it in a respectful manner. But there's nothing wrong with actually challenging the status quo. So you have to be prepared to challenge. And I think most importantly, you have to make sure that your voice and your perspectives, you have to know that they actually matter. So nothing's going to come to you automatically. Like, it's not like you're gonna, it's just not gonna be handed to you. And I think
Hmm.
people, they want to wait their turn. They
Hmm.
hope that things come their way. You can't. That is not how God has set us up. He's giving you the tools, he's giving you the resources. You have to go out after it. You have to attack. And so it's really important for you to
Yes.
set yourself up for success. Where do you see yourself in the future? So sometimes you're going to have to take risk. And I'm going to tell the story really, really quick. I was working in the governor's office and literally, I mean, I have my own office, I have a secretary. I'm not even 30 at the point. I'm not comfortable or I'm at
Mm-hmm.
the point where I'm bored.
Right.
And most people would not have said that. Like, for me, you should have been glad you're in that
Right.
position, right? I was I was bored. I could do the work with the back of my hand, like, and I had a master's degree. Everybody else in the office
Mm.
had a law degree. And I said, I want to do something else. And I remember watching a good friend of mine, Samantha Gordon, and she was then with Governor Corzine. And I said, I want to jump in the governor's second campaign. And I jumped on his campaign. And I remember I was working with like Senator Loretta Weinberg. Then it was Troy Singleton, but Senator Troy Singleton. And I just remember that opportunity opened up some incredible
Hmm.
doors. Now, mind you, I took a pay cut. That was the risk. I worked way more hours, nights, weekends, took a risk. I had to travel from Trenton to Bergen County because many times I was with the lieutenant governor
Hmm.
candidate who was Senator Loretta Weinberg. But it opened up doors, partnerships,
Hmm.
relationships that I would have received. Folks up and down the state. I would have made the connection to a Ty Cooper, who's a very good
Right.
friend of mine, a Talia Young, to Marilyn Davis and Micheline. They worked in the governor's office then, but it was a different type
Right.
of connection, like the Chris James, all of those types of individuals who were at the forefront and moving in a very similar
Hmm.
direction and
Hmm.
had a very similar mindset as me. these are go-getters. So these are the people that I needed to make sure that I surround myself with. And so taking that risk, obviously we know that we lost that
Right.
particular election, but best thing I ever did. Best thing I ever did. So taking risk, knowing yourself, and not taking a lot of things personal, guys. So there's going to be some difficulties in life, and we can't take them all personal. But really dusting yourself up, dusting yourself off, and getting up and doing the work and knowing what you're passionate about and thriving. So that's that's my advice for our young women.
We thank you for joining the Kane University Office of Government and Affairs and Community Partnerships team for our Women's History Month podcast. We appreciate your time. We appreciate that when we call, you answer, and we hope to see you around Kane University sometime very, very soon. And we again appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it again. Aisha, thank you so much for doing this and bearing with me. Thank you to Kane University, to Dr. Repillette, and to, again, the
Absolutely.
amazing Kelly Ledette. When I think about Kelly, let me just say this. When I think about Kelly, it is when, as women, you always want strong women around you. You always want strong women supporting you and praying for you. And that's Kelly Ledette.
Absolutely.
So I
Thank
have
you
to just say
again.
that. Thank you.